So as we've been doing with the rest of the factoring, it's important to understand how we got there in the first place. Like, where does this come from? So take a look at these, and this direction is expanding. We did that before. You're pros at that. But how do we go back the other way, which is what we call factoring? And yesterday, it was quite straightforward. So for example, just watch for a minute. You had an example like this, perhaps. X squared plus 8x plus 15. In fact, I think that was in the learning goal. And you just come up with two numbers that multiply to 15 and add to 8, and we know how to write it. And those numbers in this case are easy, positive 5 and positive 3. And that's all there is to it. But this one's different. Because when I expand, 3x times 3x is 6x squared. 3x times 3 is plus 9x. 1 times 2x is 2x. And then 1 times 3 is plus 3. So the outside ones are straightforward, but the inside ones are more complicated. They're not just two numbers that like add to 11 and multiply to 3. Like, look at these numbers. That's not how it works. It's not as easy. Because of the 6 out front, it's much more complicated. So unfortunately, the simple trinomial only works when you have a 1 in front of the x squared. That's what makes it a simple trinomial, if you have a 1 in front of the x squared. But this one has a 6, so it's a complex trinomial. So we need a different method. And it's quite a bit more complicated. And it is not intuitive. If you didn't have somebody show you how to do this, it would be very difficult for you to figure it out on your own or make up your own way of doing it. Whereas with that other stuff, you might have been able to kind of get there on your own. This is a lot harder. And it's weird at first. I know it's weird. You don't have to tell me it's weird. I've taught this to a lot of grade 10s over the years, and every year they're like, this is crazy. I have no idea what you just did. It makes no sense. And then in about 20 minutes, you're going to be like, oh, okay, now I'm starting to get this. And you're going to go home today, and you're going to be able to do it. And you might not be great at it, but then we're going to do more on Monday and more next week. And by the end of that, you will be. Like, you will get surprisingly fast at this. You'll impress yourself, which is awesome. Okay? It's one of those times where, like, you're going to overcome something that's a really big deal. The other awesome thing about this is we're going to dance to solve these questions. You never thought you would solve math questions by dancing, but today we're going to solve math questions by dancing. Some of you are like, oh my gosh, are we actually going to dance? I don't like dancing. Got their anxiety up, but trust me, it's going to be a lot of fun. How do we do this? The first thing that we do is we realize that when I write out, my answer is going to look like this, but I don't know what to put in the first position. It's not just x and x. I don't know what to do. So you can write out the brackets, but you can't put anything inside. So what we're going to do, follow our algorithm, and I'm going to write down all of the pairs of factors of the coefficient of the first terms. That's 3. And I'm going to do it like this. You have to, don't make up your own way of writing it. Write it the same way that I do it. 1 and 3. That's it. It's done. 3 is a prime number. What's a prime number? Anang? By 1 and itself. So it has exactly 2 factors, 1 in itself. That's what a prime number is. 3 is a prime number, 2 is a prime number, 5 is a prime number, 7, 11, 13, 17, 19, and so on. Those are the prime numbers. This is a little bit easier with a prime number. We'll talk about that more later. But this is a prime number, so that's the only pair. You have to write them in pairs. And I have to write, this is how specific it is, I have to write those factors on the left. So these are the factors of the x squared term, and I write them on the left. Then I put a line. So you do the same thing. Put a line. Write down those factors, and then put a line. Then I'm going to write down the factors of the last term. So that's 2. And it's prime as well, so it's just 1 and 2. But there's one more step here before we can start dancing, and we have to flip all of the factors on one side of that line. So I can either flip the 1 and the 3 or flip the 2 and the 1. In this case, it doesn't matter. Sometimes you might have like 5 pairs on one side and 2 on the other. So flip the 2, right? Because there's fewer pairs. But in this case, it doesn't matter, so I'm going to flip it. Here's all the questions you're going to have. You only have to flip one side. Yes, you always have to flip it. There was only 1 pair here, so I only flipped one thing. But if there were 3 pairs, I'd write them all out twice, flip all 3. Have to, have to, have to. Why? Because that's how it works. Because if you don't, half the time you won't be able to solve the question. It's just the way that it works. This is what allows us to make sure we get all the combinations so we can find the one that's the right answer. If you didn't do it, it wouldn't work. That's why. Here's where the dancing comes in. Everybody ready to dance? Stand up. No, you don't have to stand up. I'm just kidding. I'm going to dance. You all just get to watch me. This is my dance move. It's going to be really impressive. I take my left hand and I put it up on top like this. I take my right hand and I put it on the bottom like that. And I multiply. And then I switch and multiply. And the 2 things that I get, I'm going to add them together. And if that's not my answer, I'm going to switch and I'm going to do these 2. Multiply, multiply, add, and see if it's my answer. So we dance to solve until we find the answer. This is my dance move. It's pretty impressive, right? No, it's not. Okay. So wait. So hold on. We missed a little step here, though. So let me show you exactly how this works. 1 times 2 is 2. 3 times 1 is 3. 2 plus 3 is 5. So that's our answer. We got it the first time. This one's easy. It doesn't have a lot of options. So we got it the first time. Usually it takes a few tries until you find the right answer. But it goes like this. 1 times 2 is 2. So you're always multiplying it like across the line and diagonally. You don't multiply the tops together and the bottoms together. You don't do that. You have to switch and dance. 3 times 1 gave me 3. And notice that 3 plus 2 is 5. That's what I'm looking for. I found it. So that's my answer. And then the last step, that again, you have to do it this way. And this is in the note above. You read your answer across the page. So this is 1x and 1 and 3x and 2. Those are my pairs that work. So it's 1x and 1 and 3x and 2. X plus 1, 3x plus 2. And then take a look. Just like watch for a minute. X times 3x is 3x squared. 1 times 2 is 2. And 2x plus 3x is 5x. So there you go. That's why it works. Let's try another one. I tried to tell you, you all thought I'd be crazy after seeing it for the first time. And you'd all feel like, that doesn't make any sense. I don't even know what he did. He's talking about dancing, and then he writes down an answer, and he wrote down some numbers. I have no idea what's going on. I know that's how you feel. It's normal. You're supposed to feel that way. Just go with it. Okay, so let's walk through this one together. But it is important that you're trying these. And even if you're like, I don't think I can do this, you have to try. Like, start by writing down the factors. So remember, we start by writing down the factors of 2. Now 10 has more factors, so I'm going to flip this side. Whoops. 1 and 2, and I'm going to flip this side 2 and 1. Now I'm going to write out the factors of 10. 1 and 10, 2 and 5. Now I'm going to dance. I'm looking for a sum of 9. 10 and 2. 1 times 10, 10. 2 times 1 is 2. 10 plus 2 is 12. Not the right answer. Do you agree? Not the right answer. So I'm sticking with this one, and I'm moving on to the next one. I'm going to do this whole column with all of these before I move on. Don't pick random pairs, because you'll keep skipping the same one that's the right answer. Okay, so 1 times 10 is 10. 2 times 1 is 12. 10 is 2. 10 plus 2 is 12. Not the right answer. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 2 is 4. 5 plus 4 is 9. So there's my answer. Some of you are saying, I still have no idea what's going on. Don't worry. We're getting there. 1 times 5 is 5. 2 times 2 is 4. 4 plus 5 is 9, my middle term, so that's my answer. Read the answer across the page. 1x and 2, so x plus 2, and 2x and 5. So far, everything's been positive, so I haven't had to worry about signs. Yes? It's a y. Yeah, I do that every time. I did the exact same thing this morning. I do that every single year. And I'm going to keep doing it every year, probably for the rest of my career. Any other questions before we move on to the next one? It's still okay if you feel a bit weird about this. But it's not okay to like always feel like you got to get there eventually. But you will if you keep trying. Okay, let's try another one. Go ahead and try to write down the factors of the first term and the third term. What's different about this one? The 6 isn't a prime number. Oh yeah, that's right. The 6 isn't a prime number. That's a good thing to notice.
When writing out the terms, do we have to write the first one and then flip, or do we write all the first ones and then flip all of them?
I would try to write all of the pairs and then flip them when you're done writing all the pairs is what I would do. Does anybody else see something that's different about this one from the first two? Jaden? It's got negatives in it. That's gonna make a difference, but later. So it doesn't matter for the factors. So you're just writing out the factors of 6 and the factors of 12. How many people think they have that done? What are the factors of 6? 1 and 6 and 2 and 3.
How do we know which number to write on the top and the bottom?
Doesn't matter. But I always, because I think just if you have a routine and you have a way that you always do it, then it's easier on your brain. You can think about more important things and that just happens automatically. I always start with 1 on top and count up 1, 2, 3 and pick all the ones, kind of like what we did yesterday. But there's no rule. But Tara, what's this? So what are all the factors of 12? 1 and 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. I'm done, right? I have to flip one side or the other. I don't have to flip both sides, but I have to flip one side or the other. I'm going to flip the left side because there's only 2, so it's a little bit easier. It's a little less work. 3 and 2 and 6 and 1. So see how I wrote them, Tara. When I flip them, I've got both on top and both on bottom, right? So you have to flip. So then we have all of our bases covered. And now I have a full set of all the possible pairs that would give me 6 and 12. And I have to check and see which one also gives me negative 1b in the middle. So because the product, the 12 is negative, that tells us the signs are going to be different, which means I'm going to still dance and cross multiply across the line, but instead of adding them together, I'm going to subtract them and look for the difference. I'm not worried about which one's positive and which one's negative yet. Okay? It's not like simple trinomial factoring where it's kind of obvious. We have to wait till the very last step to figure out which one's negative and which one's positive. So I'm going to start going and keep dancing until I find, and you can watch me do this one again, and then the next one I'm going to let you try on your own, until I get a difference of 1, okay? So here we go. 12 and 6. 12 minus 6 is not 1. 6, 1 times 6 is 6. 6 times 2 is 12. Still a difference of 6, not the right one. 1 times 4 is 4. 6 times 3 is 18, not a difference of 1. I'm done with 1 and 6 because I tried it with all 3 pairs. Moving on. 2 and 12 and 3 and 1, not even close. 2 times 12 is 24. See how you don't have to fully multiply. Sometimes you can just tell that it's not even close. Okay, moving on. 2 times 6 is 12. 3 times 2 is 6. Nope. 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 3 is 9. There it is. Do you see it? Is it starting to become clear? 2 times 4 is 8. 3 times 3 is 9. They have a difference of 1, which is what I was looking for, so that's my answer. So just watch again. Watch me write this. It's 2b and 3, and 3b and 4. And how do I find which one's negative, which one's positive? There's a few ways. Once you get used to this, you can probably just do it in your head. But until then, I would say guess and check. So take your pencil, not a pen because you want to be able to erase it, and try something. So I'm just going to try putting in a plus and a minus. I know they have to have opposite signs because they multiply to negative 12. That would give me 9b minus 8b, which is positive 1b. That's wrong. So erase it and try again. Whoops, I erased too much. So this one's minus and this one's plus, and that gives me negative 9b plus 8b, and that's right. That's called the smile twice check method. We call it the smile twice to check. Always do that. Otherwise, you will half the time get your signs backwards. It's hard. You'd be surprised that your brain will make that mistake unless you really double check, triple check every question. Negative 9 plus 8 is negative 1. So smile twice to check. Yes?
So if you only flip the ones on the left side?
No, you flip one or the other. You have to flip either side. It doesn't matter which side, but you have to flip one of the sides. I would say always flip the side with fewer pairs. So this one only had 2. This one had 3. That's why I flipped the left side. Okay, whoops. D. Here we go. Your first chance to try one on your own. You're going to start by writing out the factors in the right order. Make sure you get them all. And then start looking for a sum of 32. Sum of 32. How are we doing? Some people are getting there already. It's very good. So let's see if you got the right. Let's see if you're, but it's okay if you're not. So 1 and 12, just watch. 2 and 6 and 3 and 4. Some people wrote the 5s on the wrong side. They put the 5s on the left. That won't work when you get to your answer stage. You have to have the 12 factors, which is the a squared coefficient, on the left, and the constant factors on the right. And I'm going to flip this one. So Alan, you asked before, do I always have to flip the ones on the left? No, look, I flipped the ones on the right because there's only one of them. So it makes my job way easier. And some people were picking 32 to write the factors out of, but that's what we're looking to add to, not multiply to. So I don't need the factors of those. And now I start dancing. I'm looking for a sum of 32. Yes, 32 is negative, but the 5 is positive, so they have the same sign. So I believe 2 times 1 is 2. 6 times 5 is 30. 30 plus 2 is 32. And this is why I have to have them written in this order. It's 2x and 5. Whoops, 2x and 5. And 6x and 1. It's a, yeah, no, it's not x. Doesn't matter. That's not the point here, folks. Okay, and then they're both negative, right? That way, negative 5 times negative 1 is positive 5. But when I add them together, I get negative 32. Smile twice to check. This is negative 30a minus 2a is negative 32a. Yes?
You choose, it doesn't matter what's happening on the actual question, it matters, you can just choose if it's plus or minus or plus and plus, as long as it works out to the end.
Yeah. Like for this whole part of the algorithm, you don't worry about what's positive and negative, but I have to worry if I'm adding these two or if I'm subtracting these two. That matters. Sometimes you're adding, sometimes you're subtracting. That depends on that sign. And then once I get everything written out, I decide which sign goes where by, like you said, just making sure that it works. Yes. Okay, try another one. All right. We're getting there, folks. We're getting there. I'm going to show you a little trick, but don't start doing this yet. But once you've tried a bunch and you're getting more comfortable, then some of you might want to try it. Some of you may never want to. That's fine. 3 is a prime number. So if I was doing this, because I've done a lot of these in my life, I know that it's going to be 3x and 1x because it's a prime number. So sometimes you can kind of get away with writing that down and then just trying factors of 10 in there. And because this is a 1, I think it's probably 2 and 5. So I notice 3 times 2 is 6. 5 times 1 is 5. 6 minus 5 is 1. So you can kind of get it. But you're not ready for that yet. That's the next step. Maybe not even until Monday. But some of you might want to start thinking about it. But this is what your answer would have looked like. Oh, and the other thing is, even if you start trying that, never stare at a page for too long when you're factoring. Don't stare hoping that the number jumps up off the page at you. Sometimes it does. But if you've been staring for longer than 8 seconds, it's time to start writing something. Otherwise, all of a sudden, you've taken 3 minutes on one little question because you just can't get the answer and you run out of time on the test. So 1 and 3, 3 and 1, and then 1 and 10, and 2 and 5. And sure enough, 1 times 5 is 5. 3 times 2 is 6. They have a difference of 1. How do I figure out my signs? This gives me the 6. This gives me the 5. I want the 6 to be positive so that the middle term is positive. So this one's positive and this one's negative. But you can do like a guess and check. Just put the signs in, smile twice to check if they're wrong, erase and switch them. and check again. All right, let's try another one. This one's a little bit harder because it's bigger numbers. But I think you're ready for it. You have to have faith in this process. A really good thing to think about is because you don't really see the pattern, like you don't see why this works. You can, it's not impossible to, it's just you don't at first. You don't see why this works at first. You start to think, maybe it's not going to work for this one. No, it always works. There's never a time where this, if you do it the right way and you list out all the factors, there's never a time where this doesn't work. So make sure you got all the factors written down properly. I'll write them down. Flip one side. And start dancing. Keep trying. Take a look. 9 times 5 is 45. 2 times 4 is 8. What's 45 plus 8? 53. That's a tricky one. But I'm telling you, the answer's there. If you couldn't find it, you need to go systematically. You need to be very careful that you're not skipping over one without checking, thinking it's not going to work, or like not just, I don't know, just in your head you're sort of like randomly trying different pairs. You got to systematically go through it. So what's the answer here? 2a and 5, 9a and 4, and they're both subtract. Smile twice to check. So I've got 2a times 9a is 18a squared. Negative 5 times negative 4 is 20, positive 20. And negative 8a minus 45a is negative 53a. Okay, let's try an easier one. If you think you got it, do a check. Make sure if it's right. I'm multiplying to a negative, so they have different signs, so they are going to be different by 1. I'm subtracting after I cross multiply. 2 times 2 is 4. 3 times 1 is 3. 4 minus 3 is 1, so there they are. So that's 2m and 1. Reading them, remember, across the page. 3m and 2. Which one's negative, which one's positive? This gives me 4. This gives me 3. The 4 has to be positive. Some people think the bigger number is the same as inside. No. It's a combination of the two after you multiply. It's which one of those is bigger. So it's not, this case it was. 2 is bigger than 1 and it was the plus, but that's not why it was the plus. So don't just take the bigger number. Okay, I think we got one more here to try. This one looks a little bit tricky, but it's not as bad. Yes, 12 has some factors. 15's got a couple, but not too many. And everything's positive, so you're just adding. So you got one more here to try. See if anybody can beat me. Don't forget to flip one side. So this is another really good chance that if you feel like you've gone through every possibility and you didn't find the answer, then there's something that you're doing, like you're doing it too fast, you're not checking carefully, and you're missing it. So reflect on that for a moment and say, what can I do differently to make sure that I'm not just missing the answer? So there you go. Took me like a lot of tries. 3 times 3 is 9. 4 times 5 is 20. The answer is there every single time. Every single time. You just have to keep trying. And if I didn't flip this one, I wouldn't have found it. That's why you have to flip. Any questions? When you practice, you just get good at it, and sometimes you end up guessing. Like I just guessed that it was probably going to be 3 and 4, and then I thought it's probably going to be 5 and 3, so I tried them both ways, and one of them worked. So you can do educated guessing, but there are other ways of doing this. They are not faster. There are ways that you can do it a little bit more without thinking. And some of you are going to like that, but it's a bad idea. If you want to go on to grade 11, this is the way that you should be solving these. You should be factoring them. This is the best way to do it. It takes a little bit of time, but you get there. So give it a try. Everything's online. If you look up other ways and you think they're better,